All right, everyone, good morning. My name is Erin Farmer, and I am the chair of our President's Diversity and Inclusion Council. I'd like to welcome you guys to our Black History Month event. It is being co-sponsored by our Diversity and Inclusion Council as well as our Council for African American and Latino American Concerns. So I'm very excited to have Cherie Coleman here with us today. Before we get started and I read her bio to all of you, I just want to remind you that we have lots of snacks and drinks in the back of the room. So feel free throughout the presentation, if you want to go grab a snack, you're more than welcome to. I think we were supposed to have a class that was coming as well, so we'll just let them filter in as they are arriving if they're able to make it. So Cherie Coleman is a multifaceted professional with a 30-plus year career holding leadership roles in various capacities in health information and healthcare management. During her journey, and more than 10 years ago, she became a diversity and inclusion change agent, holding Diversity Council co-chair and chair seats for her organization, and was a catalyst for diversity awareness. In addition to becoming proficient in the D&I discipline, she received a master's in communications degree with an emphasis in business leadership and change management from Northwestern University in 2012. Also in 2012, she joined the Illinois Diversity Council, a nonprofit organization, as the activities and events chair. In the fall of 2016, Cherie became a certified diversity professional and stepped into the role of advisory board president. Over the last 8 years, she has promoted the Illinois Diversity Council's mission, vision, and values of transforming corporate, communities, and educational institution cultures where all stakeholders experience the synergy of equity, diversity, and inclusion. In her role as council president, she leads a local team of more than 50 volunteers, creates and implements strategy with the board of directors, is the local liaison for the National Diversity Council, and serves a community of several thousand. She oversees the distribution of communication cascades with meaningful content, develops and executes impactful educational programming, and creates quantifiable results that drive business goals for business partners. Her leadership has expanded the Illinois Diversity Council's brand, allyships, and advocacy in the areas of leadership development, awareness, training, and education, and creating real sustainable change. Cherie is an avid traveler, extremely family-oriented, passionate about artistic creativity. We talked about how she has her certified interior designer's license, certificate, and she's resolved a life's mission of giving of herself to encourage and empower others. So please join me in welcoming today's speaker, Cherie Coleman.
Okay, so is this like a wedding? Which side is the bride and the grooms? Because we got more over here. That's the groom, and he not here. So, hello, family. What about y'all? Thank you so much for having me, and I'm really excited to be able to share some Black history information with you today and for us to fellowship together. So again, just thank you, Erin, for the introduction. I'm Cherie Coleman. I'm the president of the Illinois Diversity Council. And just to spend a few moments talking to you all about how the Illinois Diversity Council and Joliet Junior College came into partnership. A little less than a year ago, the president's office reached out to me wanting to align themselves with an organization that could support the mission, vision, and values of the college in terms of embedding diversity, equity, and inclusion within the culture. They did not have an agenda to just have it be a program or a Black History Month celebration. They recognized the need to diversify the student body, the faculty, and the staff, and they wanted to support in doing that. And so since that time, we have established an allyship that promotes activism, awareness, accountability, and amplifying those voices that sometimes go unheard. So I just want to, if you weren't aware of the support that you all have that are kind of behind the scenes, I wanted to share that with you to let you know that the college and the president's office is really committed to this diversity, equity, and inclusion work. So let's talk about the why. Why Black History Month? So Black History Month, and you all may be, I'm certain familiar with this, but it's an opportunity, it's an annual observance, an opportunity to learn, honor, and celebrate the achievements of Black history contributors to not just the U.S., but the world. And so I incorporated some imagery because these are some of the images that we're accustomed to seeing during Black History Month. We're always accustomed to seeing the kente cloth, which is, again, a cloth that is manufactured in Africa. It usually have bright colors, and it has the banding and the weave to it. The second image, I really like that one because it incorporates the continent of Africa with the United States and represents the Pan-African colors. Is there anyone that's familiar with the Pan-African colors and maybe what they represent? Let me hear your voices. What's the black? The people. And the red? The blood. And the green? The fertility of the land. In terms of there's a couple different variations. So there's red, black, and green, and there's also red, gold, and green. And so the gold represents the richness of the land as well, and that is representative of the Ethiopian flag. So they're interchangeable. And then finally, of course, we are accustomed to seeing this collage of all the representation of the Black leaders. And so always Dr. Martin Luther King is in the photo. I'm not sure how visually clear it is from your perspective, but in the back you have Mae Jemison, you have Serena Williams, but we have a new person that's in the forefront, the two-term first Black president, Barack Obama. All right. So, the win. I appreciate, it looks like I have some mature participants here. And so, has anyone heard the conspiracy theory that somehow February was given to us for Black history and we got shorted because it's the shortest month of the year? Has anyone ever heard that? It's a myth. It's a myth. And so the founding father of Black History Month was really intentional with choosing the month of February because it represented the birthday of the president, Abraham Lincoln, who signed the Emancipation Proclamation, and of course the renowned abolitionist Frederick Douglass. So he was really intentional in choosing that when he started the campaign to acknowledge the contributions that we've made. So it originated as Negro History Week and then cultivated into Black History Month in 1976. But the good news is that if you do subscribe to that myth, we get an extra day this year because it's leap year. So we get 29 days this year. So the origin. I love to talk, and I hope we'll have enough time for you to experience that. But I wanted to incorporate some visual imagery into the presentation. So I am going to share with you a video. So just to share with you a few more facts about Carter G. Woodson. His parents, as it was depicted in the video, were slaves. And so, of course, they didn't have the financial means to be able to send him to school. And so he was self-taught in his formative years. At the age of 20, he finally got the opportunity to go to formal education, and he entered into high school at 20 years old, and he finished high school in 2 years. After that, he received both a bachelor's and a master's from the University of Chicago. So he was a local guy, and that's really meaningful to me because that's where I started my career there at the University of Chicago for 10 years. And then after that, he was the second African American to receive a doctorate from Harvard University. W.E.B. Du Bois was the first. So he had a pretty impressive educational journey. And so, pardon me, Black History Month has really expanded outside of the curriculum of traditional educational institutions. And so corporate America is now adopting Black history commemorations and celebrations as well. So this month in February, both the Wall Street Journal and Forbes reported that several prominent Fortune 500 companies were incorporating Black history commemorations and celebrations into their marketing campaigns. And at the bottom here, you'll see that includes Coca-Cola, Google, Target, Macy's, UPS, and Under Armour. So it's not, again, just a check in the box in terms of 1 month out of the year, annual celebration. The world, in essence, is really acknowledging and recognizing the need to incorporate celebrating African Americans. And so the theme, annually, each year, Black History Month is given a theme. And so this year, the African American and the vote is really significant. And the reason that it's significant is 2020 is a really important general election year, as we most certainly know, and it's really landmark for voting rights in general. 2020 marks the 150th anniversary of the 15th Amendment, which gave Black men the right to vote, and it also is the centennial celebration of the 19th Amendment, which gave Black women the right to vote. So 2020 is really monumental in terms of African Americans and their right to elect officials. This is just some really interesting facts in terms of, for those that are not in the culture, to just take a moment and pause and acknowledge that this has been a very, very long journey, much before the Emancipation Proclamation, and certainly in between the Emancipation Proclamation and the Civil Rights Movement, and then finally the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So it's been a really, really long journey of advocacy for the right to vote. I really like this picture. I wanted to share with you all that depicts Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks celebrating with Lyndon Johnson when he signed the bill into federal law in 1965. And then since then, which I knew it had been amended several times, but I didn't know as many as 5 times that the bill has been amended to incorporate language to fill some of those gaps. And again, just reiterating that the vote is really essential, and it is in line with the theme for Black History Month, and our struggles continue. So it's not a moment in time, it's a lifelong journey. And the good news is that if we keep up the momentum that we gained in the 2018 midterm elections, we will be in a really good position for this general election for 2020. In 2018, we voted in a record number of minorities and women into legislative seats, and we saw impressive voter turnout in some minority and underserved communities. So if we keep that momentum for 2020, we'll be able to put people in office that are in tune with issues that are meaningful for our community. So, know your heritage. I wanted to spend a few moments on this because Black History Month, in terms of American history, is really grounded in American history. And as African Americans, I want to encourage everyone to pursue a knowledge of their lineage past America. I want to be transparent and share with you, Aaron mentioned in my bio that I attended Northwestern University. I went to an alumni event, and the facilitator of a session did a round robin around the class and asked everyone to share where their family was from. And there was a lot of different ethnicities and races and cultures, and everyone was very generous with sharing that. And I was embarrassed that as far back as I knew was Mississippi, which was what my grandparents had shared with me. And I wanted to be much more broader and really display my African pride in terms of giving them more information about my African ancestry. So I want to encourage you all to do that. There is a whole host of D&I tools and online applications to really dig down deep to the roots of our lineage. And so when we tell our story, we'll be able to go back as far can go. And I hope that you all, or maybe someone in your family, that you have a Tina. Tina is my youngest sister, and she not only has a passion for it, but she is really gifted in genealogy. And as soon as she delivers her 5th child in a couple of weeks, she's going to revisit taking on the academic journey forward to become a genealogist. But she has really navigated the family in terms of getting us on board to do all the research. She's connected with with African relatives in other cities and states. And so it's been a phenomenal experience that I would have never undertaken. But if you have someone in your family, I would say encourage them and definitely pursue learning more about your lineage. And we have historians in our own family. And so if we ask questions, I'm sure, the aunts, the uncles, the great aunts, the uncles, the grandparents, great-grandparents, they have a wealth of knowledge to share in terms of the stories, in terms of the traditions, in terms of the history of our families. And I would even encourage you to document it if you have that opportunity as well. And sometimes it's just sitting down, recording a conversation just to have a historical keepsake. And then finally, if you have the financial resources and 2 hours to take a plane trip to Washington, D.C., I would encourage you to visit the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. I had the pleasure of going in 2017, and it was life-changing for me. It is not a museum that you can just pop in and pop out of. It does require a reservation, so there is some planning that needs to occur. But when you begin the walkthrough in the lower level, it is a very emotional experience when they're talking about the slave trade, and you're alongside other cultures, but there is no one speaking. And there's no signs that says that you can't speak, but no one is speaking. It is really an emotional journey, but you are speaking with your eyes, so everyone is giving eye contact, and they're speaking affirmations of empathy, of support to you if they were in another culture, but it's really an emotional journey, and it takes a full day. It really takes a full day, and I would encourage you, if you have the opportunity, the tickets are difficult and they to acquire, but they open up windows where they periodically allow you to go in online. Is there anyone that's had the opportunity to visit the museum? What was your experience? Do you mind sharing? Was it as I'm describing?
I totally agree. It's not a walk-in, walk-out situation. I go to D.C. every year. We actually going again. This will be like my 4th time.
Okay.
And it's just so much to take in.
It is.
But a wonderful experience. I feel encouraged to take the opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you get to the top levels, then it's more of the 70s and the 80s era, and again, it's an emotional journey, because so when you're in the lower level, you're really just trying to take in the experiences of your forefathers, but when you get up top, it's more elated, and you find yourself smiling, and everybody's pointing out pictures. So again, I would encourage you to take that journey. So I want to take a pause. Is there any questions, comments, feedback? The microphone is there. Own it. Please be generous. I think this is a pretty good acoustic space, but any questions or comments so far? All right. So we're going to move on to our icon spotlight, and that is Ms. Zora Neale Hurston. And so there's some really important bullet points here, but I'll just call out a few. I won't read through them all. Zora was born in Alabama, but before she turned 1 year old, her family moved to Eatonville, Florida, and she has since put Eatonville on the map. And so there's a ton of monuments and museums there that celebrate her. She was absolutely a scholar. She went to Morgan State University in Howard in the South, and then moved up east to Baynard College and Columbia University, which was able to empower her to be coined a cultural anthropologist. And so Zora wrote about unique aspects of Southern culture and dialect as being an anthropologist. And she was a literary and scholar bridge that translated Black vernacular, which some are more familiar with, Ebonics, in a way that was really, really poetic. She depicted a profound power of speech based on sound and context in the word. And so when you read her work, depending on the sound, the way that the tone, the pitch, the way that you articulate it, the word could be a noun, a verb, or an adjective. She was just that gifted where, and for that reason, her work is not the type of work that you want to read quietly. You really have to be vocal and read it out loud to really capture the essence of it. Unfortunately, when Zora was trying to paint a picture of the Black experience in the South, this was also during the time, an era when Black people really wanted to evolve socially, educationally, economically. And so they wanted to move into a higher prominence. And so it was really challenging for them to spend time on celebrating her work that was really capturing the really deep South experience. And so for all intent and purposes, she was somewhat misunderstood or underappreciated in her time. And so I want to show you a short video. So just a few last points about Zora. She shared the spotlight with other Harlem Renaissance icons such as Langston Hughes. But unfortunately, she was accused of a crime during that period. And because of that, and because of the dissension with the African American community and really being misunderstood, her work she was not able to get her work published any further. And she really fell into an impoverished lifestyle. She did fall ill and had a stroke, and she died penniless and was buried in an unmarked grave. It wasn't until after her death when these papers surfaced, when people really began to appreciate the story that she was telling. And the renowned Alice Walker actually paid to have a headstone put on her grave to acknowledge her as being an icon. This quote from Zora really embodies empowerment. And this is not just one that is meaningful for Black people. I think this is meaningful for anyone that's been in a position of discrimination, whether it's gender discrimination, whether it's discrimination against your political views or religious affiliation. And I want to say it out loud because it's so empowering, and it takes the power away from the person that is giving the discrimination, and it empowers you to really own who you are. Sometimes I feel discriminated against, but it does not make me angry. It merely astonishes me. How can any deny themselves the pleasure of my company? It's beyond me. So how empowering is that? And so I want to pass this along to you all, and it's probably something I want to just put in my purse or in a bag to pull it out to whenever we feel overwhelmed or been in a place of injustice. We can repeat this to ourselves and really pour into our spirits. Okay, a cultural show and tell. So a lot of Zora Neale's work really depicted Black culture, and she talked about things like Black people don't just decorate, they decorate on top of decorations. Or, you can walk into a Black family's home, and on the refrigerator, it's like open up a photo album. There's graduation pictures and birth pictures and pictures of their favorite politician and their favorite icon. And maybe even you'll find an obituary on the refrigerator. So those are the type of stories that she was sharing about our culture. So I want to have an open mic if a few people would come up and just share some of their cultural show and tells of things that are meaningful to them and their family. And I'll kick it off. So I had the benefit of being reared with both of my grandparents. And so I'm going to tell you a story about my grandmothers. So my paternal grandmother was really a sophisticated lady. She had a really prominent career in the culinary arts. She was an icon in her church, in her community, and when she had a presence well into her 60s and 70s. She wore 3-inch heels and the hats and all of that. And so at Grandma Price's house, there was plastic on the furniture. And the living room was not a place of lounging or comfort. It was a place to host company. We sometimes opened Christmas gifts there. But her house was also so very warm. It was just a different environment. You used your inside voice in Grandma Price's house. My maternal grandmother, she was more of a homemaker, and very casual, very laid back, a woman that walked around with no shoes on, but again, very loving. And one of the things that's memorable for her house is the can of lard on the stove, right? And so lard is gross, but it made the best fried chicken, best fried pork chops, all of that. And the premise was that you don't throw anything away, right? You just washed and repeated. You took it out the can and you put it back in the can, and you just and the more that you did that, the more flavorful that, and the seasoning that you used to cook in it. So those are my two cultural icons about my family. Is there anyone else that would like to share an experience or something that's meaningful to them? Shy? I said them all? What about the little doilies? Did anybody's grandparents have the little knitted doilies? Yeah, and the things that were knitted like in the bathroom, the special towels that no one touched, right? Yes. What about the picture of the Black Jesus and the Last Supper? Yeah. What about you?
I still have a picture from my grandparents' house, which I currently still live in, with Dr. King, Kennedy, and Kennedy.
Yes.
So also the furniture. I know some came out a couple of years ago about the furniture that they used to have. We used to have at my grandparents' house.
French provincial?
Yeah, the wood furniture with the yeah, and then the plates. The plate that had the flower in the middle with the
Yes. I appreciate those plates because that was some good stuff. I actually inherited some china from my grandmother and her sister, my great aunt, and that's some good stuff. That's some good stuff. Anyone else from another culture? What would you all like to share? Something?
I'm Mexican, and that all sounds familiar to me.
Okay.
It was just the times, I guess.
Okay. Okay.
Way ahead of his time, I guess, because of all everything that's going on with the coronavirus.
Yeah. Oh.
You did not walk into the house without first going to the bathroom and washing your hands.
Really?
You have to wash, I don't care where you were, you have to wash your
I
hands.
practice that now with my nieces and nephews, and people think that I'm just this germaphobe, but they even had a preview on the news about that the flip down tray on the planes has more bacteria than the toilet. And Cherie always has her Lysol wipes when I board the plane to wipe that down, so I can relate to that. Anyone else? Any?
That every gathering, every Thanksgiving, every like Christmas gathering, we never ate without saying grace.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Grandma or my grandfather who started the grace, and we automatically knew that you don't eat until the grace is said, among the food. And we also knew back then, it may be a little different now, back then I can remember that my grandmother always served my grandfather first.
Yes.
I remember that.
Yes. The respect. And then actually when my grandmother passed along, when we continued to have family dinners, I served my grandfather first. So he was always the head, and we honored him, and then it was okay for everyone to else partake. Well, thank you all so much for your time. In closing, I could not resist. I am such a huge gift giver. I could not resist bringing some of Zora Neale Hurston's work. It looks like the Brad side is faculty and staff. Is that correct, mostly? Mostly. So I think you said that you were a student?
I am a student.
Okay. Well, is it okay if I gift the student? I have two versions. I have a book for her short stories, and then I have her most popular, Their Eyes Were Watching God. So come up and choose. Thank you all so much for your time and your attention and sharing the afternoon with me. Thank you.